Hi, everyone. Good morning to you from Berlin, Germany. And also good morning from Nigeria. For my co host, Mike, tuning in from Nigeria with us. Today, we're going to be talking about paying tax abroad versus paying tax at home. What's the difference? Why does it feel different when you pay tax in a country like Germany versus if you're paying tax in a country like Nigeria? Why are people doing? Why do some people like to do it? Why do other people not like to do it? What benefits do you get when you're paying tax in one country over the other country? I think this is an important conversation to have now, especially given the recent changes in Nigeria, for example, where tax has been now taken to the next level. Kind of what is happening in other countries, but today we will go into, say, like comparing what it feels like paying tax in Europe versus paying tax in Africa, Nigeria, for example. But before I proceed, I'd like my co-host who's tuning in from Nigeria to also, yeah, say hello to us, and then we proceed.
Yeah, hello. Happy New Year. The year is still new, of course, because it's the first edition of our podcast for the year 2026. And so, thank you so much. I'm excited to start, and I'm in high spirit and for this very all important topic for of conversation discussion today. Thanks.
Great. So the first thing is, oh, by the way, we couldn't make any podcast so far this year until today for various personal reasons, but you can be sure that we are back now every Saturday, 7:30 a.m. West African time. So thank you for staying around and let's dive into the conversation for today. Now, first and foremost, I would like to mention that I personally am not a tax advisor, neither is my co host a tax advisor. What we are sharing are from lived experience and basic knowledge that we have around taxes. If you need tax advice, please go to a professional to get that. That being said, um, what is the core difference between paying tax abroad, where it feels more like compliance and normal, versus paying tax at home, where it feels a bit forced? I will break it down to like what it is here and also from my experience. The thing about paying tax in Europe or in Germany, for example, is it has it's of course enforced, but enforced that is now normalized. You don't feel like it's enforced anymore. And there already a system in place that strategically works in the sense that let's say if you earn 6,000 euros per month as your salary, at the end of the month, you are getting maybe like 3,500 or 4,000, depending on your tax brackets and social contributions. It's important to know that the deductions that happen in your salary, they are not all just to taxes. They're actually like two main categories of the deduction. There's the tax, and then there's the social contributions which you make. In the tax, there are the income tax which you pay for money that you earned, and then there's the solidarity tax or surcharge. And then if you are registered to a church, there is also the church tax that you pay, which is remitted to the church that you belong to. Then on the other hand, there are the social contributions, which include your health insurance, unemployment benefits, um, pension insurance, so you're paying for your pension. And then lastly, there is the, yeah, Pflegeversicherung, like long-term care, like when you get old, being taken care of, right? So there are like these four insurances that you pay for. So these are like the social contributions which are deducted from your salary. And these also contribute to the safety nets when you would lose your job, when you get old, when something happens. And it's important to know that the money is not just going to the state and sitting in the bank, but the money is kind of redistributed in the system. It's like at some point, some people are paying for others to benefit from, and then vice versa. For example, I give you a very practical one, which is very relatable to foreigners in Germany. When I came to Germany back in 2014 for my master's studies, I studied completely tuition free. We said tuition free not because the uni doesn't get paid. No, the uni gets paid, but someone else is paying for it. And this is paid by taxpayers' money, right? So the free education which you enjoy in Germany, for example, is contributed to by the tax, right? Um, and then this also transfers to you when you have your kids, when they are born, they also study tuition free at all level. There is also the healthcare system as well, which is also like enforced that everyone needs to have a health insurance. So my point is, the money that is contributed to tax and also social contributions made, they are systematically redistributed to a large extent, very fair, way. Of course, people always complain and stuff, but you see a system that works at least, right? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh, makes a lot of sense because while you were talking, I was trying to just relate it with the situation here back at home in Africa and
Yeah.
Nigeria, to be precise, where I am.
Yeah.
But for what you're saying is, it's like you're saving for the future for yourself.
That's correct.
It's like making contribution. It's like making contribution for the future where you are going to refer back to tomorrow to withdraw from.
Yeah.
Okay, so now and that brings about the main difference between paying tax abroad versus paying tax in Africa and Nigeria, to be precise. Because
Hmm.
when you're paying tax abroad, it's like an exchange. It's not like somebody taking away from you. But the main difference here is the feeling back at home is you're taking away from this person rather than an exchange. Okay, give me. It's like your father telling you when they give you money for Christmas. He said, "Give me this money." Now your father later buys a nika for you from this money.
Hmm.
If your father fails to buy you that nika, the first year, the second year, if he tells you, "I will save it for you," you say, "No, Baba, I won't give you again." So because there's already a trust gap, you can't
Hmm.
trust him again. He's just trying to take this money away from you. So I think that's basically the issue between paying tax abroad and paying in Africa. In abroad, you guys see it as an exchange. Exchange because you see it in the infrastructure, you see
Yeah.
it in the security, you see it in protection, you
Yeah.
see it in education, in health,
Yeah.
and you see the money working for you. So
Yeah. Yeah.
for you guys, paying tax abroad is like a social contract between the citizens and the
Yeah.
government.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
back at home, it's like an extraction. Why?
Yeah.
Because again, it comes in the form of even double taxation. Because after you pay this money, you make these payments, you come back home, you provide yourself with security, you provide yourself with water, you provide yourself you for education, you provide for yourself for healthcare, you provide for yourself. The healthcare systems are even very poor, so you don't
Mm.
see this money working. You're always on bad roads. You need to be making repairs on your vehicle every now and then because of the bad roads. You lose loved ones because of the bad roads. It's like life-threatening bad roads, terribly bad roads. Okay, leading to death, avoidable death, and all that. So
Mhm.
you are paying ransom for kidnapping, no security for you, and all of that. So the people see the payment, and then you see your politicians living lavishly. I mean, lavishly, no
Yeah.
accountability. All right, no transparency, no accountability, double taxation in all forms. And
Mm.
should you fall also, should you lose your job, no unemployment benefits for you, no child support, no, I mean, none of these things are not there. Just
Yeah.
recently, I was watching a video where some victims of accident were taken to a general hospital. I mean, one of these local government, Bandikia in Benue State, very large general hospital, and only one staff was on ground. One staff. The road
Ooh.
safety came with these patients, nobody to attend to these people. And then they had to start finding, running to one of these private hospitals where this person could get attention. Imagine if you are a member of this person's family. When they talk about paying tax, how will you feel?
Yeah. 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 No, but could you? So now there is the recent change in the tax system. Well, will I say
Yeah,
change or rather enforcement in the tax system in Nigeria?
yeah,
Right. That happened from the first of this year, 2026. Is that
yeah.
correct? Could
Very
you
correct.
touch
Yes.
on that a bit so that the audience from this side can understand it? Because even myself personally, I still don't fully understand that new enforcement or the change.
You know, it's been one. When you talk about tax justice, the transparency of the tax policies is one of the main ingredients of when you talk about tax justice. As you rightly mentioned at the beginning of this, I am not a specialist in tax, but at least I have basic knowledge. And I think, having gone to school, I can understand when I read from informal learning also happens. I mustn't be a professional in that, but informal learning based on resources that we've come in contact with.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now, the legislature, there is an alarm that this policy being implemented was not what they scrutinized and approved. So that after this document have been approved by the Senate and the Rep, the National Assembly, that this document being implemented there are some other extra additions, some items included after approval. And that's criminal. So first of all, that brings about a big trust issue. You bring this document, in office terms, when you have documents approved maybe for activities or payments and all that, you cannot go and impute other figures again. That's criminal.
Yeah.
It's fraudulent. So if at this level, the first things of getting this policy document that is going to inform the compliance, if the policy documents, there are trust issues around the policy document being implemented. So what about compliance? There must be some form of, it's like, it's just being forced on people, and then there are no transparency and the terms and all of this. And so that's the big issue about the policy being implemented. Yeah.
So, and now, if I understood it correctly, at least what I heard is now every money that you earn will already be deducted from, like, the tax will be deducted from your salary before, and so you get the net. So if you're like earning, say, 100K or 1 million, 20% of that is deducted. So what you get is like 80K or 800K, for example. Is
Yeah,
that
that's very
correct?
correct. That's very correct. During my last job, because I calculated my own tax because I know the amount that goes off. So, and the total that I was receiving, I calculated it. Now, by the time I did the calculation, I saw that what level is about 23%. So now, also the insincerity of government is also a big issue. And now, because you say you are taking 20%, but in reality, by the time you calculate, there are some other hidden deductions that happen. So it's not just going to be that exact figure that was mentioned or rate that was mentioned that leaves. So now, and there were also these issues around your individual accounts being taxed for every single penny that drops, tax coming in, the 15 hour stamp duty deduction for every 10,000 withdrawal. So a lot of things coming in at once. While citizens are trying to understand what you mean by this tax and the percentage, and trying to get clarity on the exact content of the tax policy. Now, could you respond to this issue from the legislature? Because normally the legislature is supposed to check the activities of the executive, and then just to ensure checks and balance. But these persons are raising this alarm. A transparent government would sit back and okay, let's have like a meeting where we will have this document that you're talking about, and the one that you say is not right. Let's compare and see, so that we all can be on the same page, and then to take care of that trust issue. But no, everything is just done because of absolute power. It's like abuse of power. And then, whether you like it or not, we're implementing it. There's nothing you can do about it. We are going ahead. We are going ahead. People are asking questions. We don't trust what the document you're using for this complicated implementation. I think you're trying to do some other things. You say, no, it doesn't matter. It has been approved. We are going ahead.
Crazy.
So a lot of questions around. People don't even know what to expect from the document. People don't even know what deductions are going to happen, what freight, and a whole lot of questions,
And this is nationwide. Like, it doesn't matter where you are in the country, as long as you're working and you're earning, the money is the deduction is taking place.
The deduction happens automatically because you are working with the telecom companies. Everything is like synchronized. Your BVN is linked to your name, a national identity number, your BVN, and then and your phone number. So everything is like interconnected. What happens is, like the person in charge of the tax, the head of this program, as he has mentioned always, he said you can't escape it. So, but the problem now, when they appear before the media, they will say a thing. When people begin to respond to that, they will say, no, you are misunderstanding what we are saying. But again, painfully, in reality, in practice, later you see that what they said is what they are doing. But you're looking them, is it what you mean? They say, no. So it's kind of confusing altogether.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so guys, let's bring it back. And now again, back to the comparison, right? I mean, truth be told, to a large extent, the tax system in Germany is fairly understandable. In as much as it's complicated, there are certain things that you can understand, and a lot of information out there that you can put out, that you can put out information out there, but also read a lot of information out there. And bringing it back here now, at least for those of us who are here, it's sad what's happening back home, right? That you see when you look at other countries, you see the kind of benefits that they get for contributing, making their different contributions, including taxes and the benefits that they get. Um, what I just would like to say is that in comparing, say, the two sides, one thing we have to keep in mind is how long this system has existed in Germany. If I'm correct, this system has existed for over 100 years and more, probably, right? I think recently I was reading about when the compulsory health insurance system was implemented in Germany. I'm definitely sure it's more than 100 years ago, definitely. And then the tax system, much, much farther. So we're talking about two worlds that are like been existing for way different time. So potentially there's still hope on the other side, things to come. Um, and we could look at the brighter side to say, okay, hey, maybe this is a step in the right direction, in as much as now it feels really painful. And I think one issue with the, say, Nigerian and to a large extent African politician is being able to communicate clearly their intention, what they have to do. And over time, it always come out like the default reaction is, yeah, more like on the negative side, that they don't have good intention for the people and all that. But who knows? Because I'm just trying to imagine how they will sit wherever in the House of Assembly, Senate House, or wherever they sit and talk to just destroy the people. I'm trying to imagine that, but in practice, it's like, what is this? So it's
If I may cut it very quickly. Now you
please,
see a House of Assembly member who should be checking the president is looking helpless.
yeah,
That's a failure of institution. Now in
mm,
Europe, this thing, the tax thing evolved, but in Africa and most parts of Africa, it's like an extraction because the colonial masters used the tax as means of getting revenue and then getting away with it.
yeah,
So when the present day leaders came in, they inherited that approach and they didn't see the need to work on it. So they became the colonial masters of their citizens.
I see.
So when citizens pay tax, what they learn from the colonial masters is what they do to the citizens. So they are like colonial masters themselves. So instead of be accountable, they forcefully they coerce people to respond and they make it very clear, like in what I don't know if whether unintentionally or very intentionally, that you don't demand for accountability. And like I just mentioned, the House, the National Assembly are supposed to summon the president for explanation. This
Yeah,
tax thing we are talking about, what is it like? That's the way institutions work. And then
yeah,
the court also can come in and say and put another. The implementation of this tax law should be suspended until every party is satisfied with the processes leading to the implementation. This
mm,
is what a working system should have been the case in a working system. But in this place, the judiciary are the mercies of the executive. Also, the legislature, the legislative arm, are also helpless.
yeah, yeah,
Unlike over there in Europe, where the system works independently of who is in power or out of power. You
mm.
know,
This is crazy. Now we have a comment here from Innocent, who's here in Europe, saying his brutto, so the gross income is 2,600, and then he gets around 2,300, in his accounts. Europe is super for who has the legal stay. That's true. And sadly, Innocent lost both parents on road accidents. Just what you were talking about,
you see that.
a moment ago. And this confirms also what we're saying. It is really sad. Innocent, sorry about your loss. Um, but again, this is also why we're doing this, right? That people are also informed. And this brings us also back to the sponsor of this weekly podcast, Settling, the platform that we have created. And again, talking about staying in Europe legally. This can only happen if you have the right information, if you are not, um, yeah, chasing something without a true end, if you're not just trying to get things done fast, but you want to do things the right way. And this is why we're building the platform, Settling. So connect and inform you on how you can move abroad to study, to work, vocational training, and now talking about finance or money, and again the whole tax system and stuff. You can study in most part of Europe 100% tuition free. And in cases where you pay tuition, the tuition is super low. Again, everything back to a system that works, the tax system, because that's essentially where the money is coming from, of course, among other places too. And maybe to touch on that, because the question that one would always ask themselves is, yeah, why is a country like Germany giving free education even to foreigners? Well, this system has been existing for decades, and there's a reason and logic behind it. To a large extent, the idea is this: when international students come and study in Germany, tuition free, they have an opportunity to experience the country, learn the culture, learn the language, understand the system, be law abiding residents, so to speak. And then after their studies, they are also given the opportunity to search for a job. Now you have up to 18 months after your study to search for a job. And as soon as you get a job, you're working, you're contributing to the tax system. It's a win-win
That
for
means
everybody. Come in, please.
now you have 18 months after your study to search for a job.
That's correct.
In these 18 months, is the government in any way committed to ensure that you're good, that you're fine? Is there any benefit from the government within these 18 months?
Definitely. There are lots of benefit from the government within this 18 months. Yeah. One for
Sorry,
sure,
Michael,
which
please.
I also
If I
do.
may, if I may comment again, that
Yeah,
is, this government have given you education free of tuition,
that's
tuition
correct.
free education.
That's
Then after
correct.
18 months, this same government gives you 18 months to look for a
After
job.
your studies, the government gives you 18 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Now,
then
at this time, have you made any contribution to the tax system?
you haven't made any reasonable contribution to the tax system. None. So you get first before you now give, you know?
No.
Because
Okay,
for
so
the
Michael,
students, yeah,
if I may come in, why would you, as an individual, not love such a system? Why would you not contribute into such a system?
right? Yeah. I mean, amongst other reasons, whether you like, you love or not, it's it's a normalized enforcement. Let me put it that way. So the enforcement of that system has now been normalized. You know that you see your earning, you see the deductions, and it's just normal for you, right? And when you're studying, and you have like a mini job or something, the tax that you pay as a student is very minimal, right? You really begin to make serious contributions after your studies when you have like a full-time job. So fair to say that yes, you first get and then you give. But the truth is, it's a system that works for everybody, right? It's to a large extent.
Okay, now talking about getting before you give, the difference here is our own system here doesn't really mind if you're getting. They don't really create room for you to settle in before even demanding, okay, and all of that. So it is not sensitive to the realities. Like part of the
Yeah.
problem with the tax system in Africa is, and I just to be specific, the economy is predominantly occupied by the informal sector, the artisans, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Mm-hmm.
these are guys who live basically on survival mode. Survival mode.
Yeah.
But the system in Europe is better organized and with big players who can be able who are able to pay these taxes without really feeling the pinch. Well, in this
Mm-hmm.
place, one single kobo is felt very massively by this
Yeah.
informal sector, and if they don't go out a day, it means they're not going to eat. So I think that's also another major issue here.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, as so we are gradually coming to the end of the session for today. We have maybe like 5 more minutes left. But before we run out, there's a point I would also like to emphasize, and especially for the people here in Europe, Germany precisely, for example. Another thing that you have to pay attention also when it comes to the tax system here is always think about doing your tax declaration, because this is also another place where most of us leave money on the table. So, and what I mean by that is, so there's always like the default calculation by the system of your taxes or of the contributions which you make. And now, at the end of the year or the next year, you have the opportunity to declare your expenses and be able to get some tax return. Speaking about tax return, Mike, could you touch on tax return in Nigeria? Is that a thing? Like you can do your tax declaration at the end of the previous year, and then For certain kind of expenses which you make, you will declare your total earning, your expenses. The system is going to calculate, and if you paid more tax, you will get some refund. If you paid less, then you pay back. Does something like that exist? You're muted.
The challenge here is now, if that comes to your account, I was talking with a friend who is running a business the other day. The taxes, the federal will want to tax you, the state would want to tax you. All right. And it's not based on your income able sometimes. They just see maybe if you have 100 million income for the year, they might just estimate it and say you should pay 26 million. Now,
What's
this
the
is
basis for that? Like,
they
no,
won't give you reason. If you try to do, they will tell you, okay, let's just negotiate. Or they don't really give you explanation. The problem here is you're trying to explain, have you considered my cost of operation, rent, salary, and
yeah,
all that power and all that, which even the government is not providing. A majority of this time you're running a generator and all that.
yeah,
And you don't seem to get all the answer. And before you know, it's coercion, coercion, force, coercion. So people are just, they're seeing it like punishment. Now, this is where the feeling of punishment
I
comes
get it.
from.
I
And
get it.
like, again, in Europe, if the Chancellor of Germany evades tax, it can lead to his or her resignation from office. It's a big offense.
Yeah, of
Nobody
course.
is exempted from paying tax, and being the leader doesn't mean you can't pay your tax or be accountable. But in
Yeah,
this part of the world, majority of the senators and all that, if you check very well, you could confirm that they are not paying taxes. So
yeah.
the law is like made for a certain class of people. That's also another big part of the problem. The law is made for those who are at the receiving end of the decisions. Whereas, for instance, now, if you remove subsidy, they buy the senators fuel for free. They take fuel for free, whereas the masses pay higher. If there are fuel taxes, even the senators don't even get to pay it because they don't even buy the fuel for themselves. This is among some of the benefits they get for being senator and such like. So when you see these things as a citizen, it begins to look like, man, this is not fair. This is not fair. The feeling of, man, this is not fair. You know.
Crazy.
So
Yeah.
all these returns and all of that, it doesn't really happen.
What you're saying in essence is there's nothing like tax declaration and tax return. You don't get nothing in
There is,
return.
there is tax declaration. There's tax declaration. But
And
when you
tax
talk about
return,
maybe
you
like,
get
if you
some.
want to talk about, but if they want to talk about is it tax returns and all of that, it depends on your position in society and on whose side you are. So it's not like it's what is done to just everybody, like what is systematically.
Mm,
Like for instance, now if you're like the Dangotes and the this of this world, maybe you were part of the campaign of the who is in office and all that. There are some special considerations you get. And if you are not, they might just say, okay, maybe you are you. So it's not done with transparently. That's just the issue. But there are tax returns, there's tax declaration and tax returns, but it is not done for. It's not normalized that
yeah,
regardless of what part of the country you're from or whose side you are, this is
yeah,
what happens to you. But that's just the main issue, the difference.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, crazy. Anyways, well, I guess for today we could at least show both sides and what it looks like. Um, the vision of this podcast every weekend is that we can, inform you about things which is happening on both sides. So if you are living in Nigeria, in Africa, that you have a feeling and understanding of what it is like on this side, and the reverse is also the case, especially for those of us who moved from Africa and are now based in Europe, that we also understand what's happening back home. We try to keep it um, to 30 minutes so we don't get too long, but we always love to hear back from you, where you're watching from, what you think about the conversation that we're having, if it's something that you can relate to. And yeah, we always love to have your contribution. So, Mike, that would be it from my side for today. Any final words from you before we wrap it up? Because I
Yeah,
know this
what I would
topic
say the
is something
difference.
that we could not exhaust in one section. So,
Yeah, you can also within this short space of time. But I want to just say now the main issue is not just payment of tax, but tax justice. Tax
yeah,
justice. And
yeah,
if you look at it from these both sides, in Europe, you could say there is tax justice. Why? Because the policy and every document, every policy item, the document, everything is clear. You can access it, everything is clear. There are no doubts about the authenticity of the policy. Also, you can get the benefits in terms of infrastructure, protection, both social, physical security, and everything. You can see it all. Your health system, everything is working for you. So your money is working for you. So there is tax justice abroad.
Mhm.
But I can't promise that back in Africa and Nigeria.
Yeah,
And
it
that's what
is
the
well.
government needs to work on.
It is well. I feel that is because I feel a bit bad, with the whole system, and I can imagine how frustrating it is. I mean, I also experienced it. You just can't get an explanation for certain things, and it's just kind of normalized, and you
Yeah.
can't do nothing. Literally, you can't do nothing. You know, I mean, it's sometimes it's like your money, a transaction didn't go through in the bank, and then nobody can do anything about it. You don't even know who to talk to. So it's I can only hope and look forward to a better future. And I genuinely believe that we are the ones that are going to be the change that we want to see. So whatever you can do to start that change, begin now. We are doing our part informing you and are also building a platform to connect and inform you about studying, working on accessing opportunities globally. So you can take it up from there. Cheers, everybody. Have a nice weekend and keep being law abiding citizens and residents. Bye for now.